today I'm going to use the Tetra Stencil. What an awesome concept. It's brilliant. It's just genius. I've not seen anything like this before with this amount of detail in, and obviously with the fantastic embossing folder as well. It's incredible. I'm not using the embossing folder today. I'm just simply using the stencil, but it won't look like this because I'm only using elements from it in different parts on my card. Okay, so that's my main piece. I'm also using these gorgeous new sentiments that were on the show last week as well. I love the font on this. It's so funky, it's so up to date, it's just brilliant, and there's so many different sentiments on there. It's super little pack. I'm also using the largest nested scalloped and plain stitched square. I love this set. I liked the original set, and this set is it's just divine. It's so sweet. I'm also using the budding stem. I'm not going to be stenciling this today. I've already stenciled my budding stem, but I wanted to show you just how fabulously the new stuff always works with the older product as well. So I'm using that, and I'm also using the nested scalloped and plain circles. I'm only using one of them, and that's just to cut my budding stem that's going to go into the centre of my card. Okay, so that's everything that I'm using today. So if I just put that to one side, and then this is where we're headed, but today's is going to look quite a bit different to this one. You can see that I've used different elements from the Tetra Stencil just around the edge. So I've not used the peg system on my Ultimate, but to be honest, it's because you've got this silicone mat and your card's not going to move. It's so easy to just use little elements of it. It's just genius. And then I've put 3D pads on my circle bit in the middle just to lift this up a bit. Okay, but the one I'm doing today is a get well card, so we didn't want this bit to be quite as bright. I mean, you know me, pink and purple is my go-to colours, isn't it? But I thought today I would go a little bit more muted, so I'm only using one ink pad. But the colours I've used on here, for those of you that like to know what colours I've used, those are the 4 that I've used on the rose, and then I've used Shocking Pink and Sweet Violet on the Tetra Stencil. Okay, so Margarita, Eucalyptus leaves and Painted Eggshell do all my stems and my leaves, and then the little rose bud I use Strawberry Sundae. Okay, and again they're all the blending inks. All right, so those are what I used on my original card. So if I just stand that there out of the way and bring my card in. Now I've put a little bit of washi tape on the back of my circle just so that my circle doesn't move, and I've put the circle on just so that I can put all my elements in the right place. Okay, so I don't want to, on this one I did all my stenciling first, right, and when I came to put my circle on I realised that I'd sort of come in a little bit too much on some of them. You can't really tell at first glance, but if you sit and examine it properly, which, you know, most crafters probably would, you'll see that I've sort of, the circle covers a little bit of the stenciling. I didn't want that. So I thought what I would do with this one is put, I've just cut this out of cheap white card and just put this in the middle so that my stenciling is going to appear on the outside of that circle. You'll see what I mean when I've finished. And like I say, I'm only using one ink pad, and I'm using the Anthracite because I wanted this, because it's a get well card, I wanted the rose to sort of be the main element that you see really. The Tetra in the background is sort of a bonus, if you like. So I'm going as far into the corner as I can, and through this stencil here you'll see a little bit of the stitching. So long as you can only see a tiny weeny bit on both of these pieces here, you'll know it's sort of pretty central. All right, so like I said, I'm not using my pegs. I'm just using the stencil freehand and just holding it in place. So I'm just going to line that up where I want it and then get my ink pad. I'm going to go quite light with this first layer, because I did think about using the white first, but to be honest I was going to be using the white, cleaning it off, then trying to line it back up onto white card with white ink, which is going to be quite difficult. So I just thought I'll just have to be a little bit less heavy-handed with my ink on these layers, because I want some difference in colours, you know, like you've seen me do before. I've used different pressures with my inks so that you get the effect of using different colours, whereas actually you're not using different colours at all, you're using the same one. So we'll just lift it up and make sure I'm happy with that, and then I can turn it around. You don't have to turn it around, you could turn the stencil around if you wanted to, but for me, I just think it's easier to turn the card round that you're stenciling onto. So just have a quick look and make sure it's a similar colour to the one I've already done. Yep, I think so. And then all I'm doing really is just pattern building with this stencil. So then I'm going to decide what other piece that I'm going to use as I'm going round, and then I'll use a little bit more pressure, or maybe a stencil brush instead of a wonder brush, just so that you can see different levels of colour really. And they're just so beautiful to stencil through. You know, you always get a crisp, clear image through these stencils. They're cut so beautifully that, you know, they're just superb. So I'll just do the last one on this corner. And you'll notice I haven't even re-inked my brush on this one, just so long as it's more or less the same colour. So you see, even just with one piece, you've already got an effect in the background that's going to sort of set your flower as the main eyepiece, if you like. But that's not enough for me. I want to fill this background. Okay, so the next piece that I thought I would do was this piece here, and I'm going here. Did I go that way up? Yes, no, I went the other way up. So I'm pointing this piece here. So if I show you, you see here, there's a, if I make sure I'm in the right place, see here, there's that little heart there. Well, that little heart will fit in the middle of this piece here on the stencil. Okay, so you've always got a place to line it up, and you can see, because you can see through the mylar, you can see where your circle is, so you know you've got plenty of room to add that in and still leave yourself a little bit of room between that stenciling and your circle. Okay, so I'm going to go in a little bit heavier. A little bit, she says. It's quite heavy, that one, isn't it? But never mind, that's fine. And I'm just going to do exactly the same again. Turn it round, place your stencil, making sure that you're sort of in line with what you've done on the other one, and then go back in with your brush and your ink and just ink through the stencil. The possibilities with this stencil are endless. I have to say, just endless. So I'm just going to pop that there, make sure I'm sort of in a similar position to what I was all the way around, because I don't want it to look too different in different places, do I? Want it to look more or less the same. And then come round to the last one, and again line it up, pop my heart in the middle of those two little fronds there, and make sure that it's more or less level with where I've been before, all on the other corners, like so. So you see the way it builds up, it's really, really clever the way it builds up, and it's, you would never think that it's all stenciling just from one stencil. You know, I just think she's a genius. She's an absolute genius. So now I want to use this piece, but I actually only want to use the 3 flowers. So I want to use just those flowers. So I'm going to make sure that I place them so that they don't overlap my stencil in here and here. And what I'm actually going to use is a small stencil brush, because I don't want to come into these little pieces here. You could use a post-it note if you wanted to, and mask off the bits that you're not using, but I don't really think it's necessary. If you're careful, you won't overlap, I don't think. So I'm just going round in circles and take the excess off my brush into my lid, just because I don't want it to be overly heavy. It's going to be reasonably heavy, but not too bad. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm just thinking I could have added some little gems in the centres of these flowers, and I've only just thought about that. See, now that looks, again, because I'm using a stencil brush and my pressure is totally different to the pressure that's on these two, it looks now like I've got 3 different colours on here, when in actual fact I have only used 1 ink pad. But how quickly the pattern fills up on this, I think is just, it's just brilliant. So again, I'm going to work from the centre, take a bit of ink off in my lid and just come out. A little bit heavy on that middle one, but we'll go a little bit heavier on the other two just to bring it level in colour, depth of colour. So I'm taking my ink from the actual lid at the moment. Yeah, I think this is fabulous. And again, like I say, you could do it in any colour you wanted. You could do it in mixed colours, like I did with the first one. I've used just 2 colours on there. But for me, sort of oranges and yellows would look amazing. Okay, just make sure that my flowers are all going to be on the card and not on the circle. And just do this last little bit up here. And I just love the beauty of these little stencil brushes. They're so directional, they're so controllable. You know, you're not going to sort of spill over into any of the other little bits, because I mean I'm using a particularly small one, which I think is, for these, is ideal, because you've got more control over it. It's not going to spill over. You're not going to sort of brush your Wonder Brush and then think, oh, I've gone a little bit mad there, and it's overspilled into the piece I didn't want on my card. So, I mean, how easy is it? How quick and easy is it to just get the most fabulous effect? I just think they're fab. Cannot fault them at all. Now, obviously, when I put my circle down, I guessed where I was putting it. So it might not be totally central, but I'm not worried. I think sometimes we can be a little bit too hung up on perfection, and I think the danger of that is that you risk putting yourself off doing something, putting yourself off experimenting or being a little bit more adventurous. So, you know, just go with the flow. As we've said so many times, just a piece of card and a bit of ink at the end of the day. Haha, how gorgeous does that look? They're not all level, they're not all equal, because this one goes up a bit at the corner. But I just think the effect of that in the background is just beautiful. So now I'm just going to lift off my piece of card out of the middle. Now you'll see I creased this, but it's not going to matter because I'm going to put something on the top. So again, you know, I could have gone, oh, I've creased my card and I'm going to throw it away, but really you don't need to. You really don't. I'm looking at it now and I'm thinking, I've got gaps here. Should I fill the gaps or not? Will it be too much? And the thing is, what would I use to fill the gap if I was going to use it? And I don't think I am, because I don't think it would look right. No, I'm not. I'm going to leave it. So I'm going to add my rose in. So you see I've already stenciled my rose, and you can, I stenciled my rose on a piece of card and then put the circle on and cut it out. Okay, you could cut a circle out and then stencil it on top. It doesn't really matter, whichever way you wanted to. Also, if you wanted to, you could stencil it, die cut one, and then put it on the top of your circle, so that you've got a doubly 3D image. Right, let's just decide what sort of angle I'm going to put this rose at, and make sure that it's in the middle before I press it down. The trouble with these pads is once they're down, so I'm not going to worry about it. I think that looks nice. I think that looks really sweet. And if you were not feeling very well, you'd be chuffed to bits to receive a card that looked that pretty, I think. I think you would anyway. So I'm going to 3D this piece as well. I wasn't going to, but I think it looks so nice. I think it deserves it. Because I think sometimes when you just do things flat on a card, I think sometimes you need to, because you've spent time on it and it looks so fabulous, make it look even more fabulous by doing it 3D, or just do something a little bit different, because I think it deserves, your artwork deserves to be out there, seen, loved. And yes, Lisa makes the product, but it's the way you use it, and everybody's different. So, you know, what I'll do, other people would maybe think, no, I don't like that, it's too plain, too simple, or I like a bit more detail on it. It's totally up to you. Everybody's individual. Never compare yourself to anybody else. Only compare your own projects to your own projects. So, you know, if you make this card and you think, yeah, it's okay, like it, make it again in a week's time and you'd be surprised how different you make it. So let's just put this down on my, this is a 6x6 card. Okay, I'll just put that down there. Now I've seen the gems would look amazing comment, so we'll use these. These are crushed ice and they're flat back gems. I think there's 3 sizes in here, 4, 5 and 6 mil. Now where's my pokey tool gone? There it is. Okay, let's put them on the flowers for now, and then we can see if it's too much or not enough. And I'm only using the smallest one because I think if I go too big, it will just overpower the card and it just won't look right. So, okay, so let's look for the tiny weeny ones and just add them as we're going along. These are gorgeous. I think these came in a set along with the blue and black and the green and yellow. I don't think there's any in stock at the moment, and they're such a price that I don't think Lisa can bring them back at the moment. She can't justify the price that she would have to charge you to bring them back. So at the moment, if they're out of stock, then they're going to be out of stock for a while. But I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that have got them. In fact, I know there's a lot of you out there that's got them. So just have a look through your 3 gems and see what you've got, and just add them accordingly. I think I'm using two different types here because they look different, but still equally as beautiful. and then I'll just add my sentiment as my final piece. The trouble with my silicone mat is these little gems stick to the silicone mat. Okay, so I've added my gems, and I'm not going to add them anywhere else. I think the flowers are enough. And then I'm just going to add my sentiment. And like I said, this is the get well soon. And I've done this in 3 parts. This is because this is how it comes, and this is how you cut it out. And I just think it's quite clever, because you can break it up beautifully. Make sure it's straight. But the font on these, I think, is just so cute. So there you go. Now they look totally different, don't they? But I've used exactly the same elements from that stencil on both cards. But I've used totally different colours. And I've also done the rose a different colour. So, like I say, the same card, but totally different. So have a fabulous week, everybody. See you soon. Bye now.